but it needs to be there, and I'm gonna put it on my YouTube, my webpage, everywhere. If you have any questions regarding this announcement, if you ask those questions now, then they will be posted with the same highlight, which is good. So here it goes. First of all, some background. Now, 1.5 years ago, some of you know this, 1.5 years ago, almost 2 years now, I would say, I developed a hand injury. I was playing a lot of very clicking intensive games like Diablo 3, like Orcs Must Die, like Awesome Knots, and those games ruined my hands in a very bad way. They got all swollen up. I think I hurt my joints and tendons first, and then the swelling caused carpal tunnel as well. So my nervous system was impaired in my hands. I was losing feeling in my fingers. It was pretty damn bad. For a year, I wasn't able to even tend to myself. I couldn't wash my hair. I couldn't prepare my own food. I just couldn't do anything with my hands, and I hurt like hell. After a year of that, I did notice some improvement. After multiple ways of trying to heal it, I noticed some improvements. So in the last summer, I started Joyful Rogue Stream. I was streaming scrolls with voice commands, barely even touching the mouse. I was using voice commands and foot pedals to click. And that was my live stream back then. I was super passionate about card games, so it actually worked out. I grew my stream quite kind of nicely, and then it started developing. Now, unfortunately, even though I noticed small improvements in terms of how my hands are healing, I'm now kinda sometimes able to play shooter games. I'm clicking much more than I used to. Even though I see small improvements in how my hands are doing, I'm noticing large changes in which games I am actually passionate about. Back when I started my stream, I was super into card games. I was Scrolls, and then Faeria, and then Hearthstone. And now I am less into card games, more into strategy games and shooters. I want to come back to strategy games and shooters that I played before my injury. And it would be really hard for me to stream card games anymore. And that brings me to the announcement. My hands are not nearly good enough to do the live streaming as I wanted to do it. I wanted to give you a 6 to 8 hour live stream 6 days a week, with no voice commands, because they really interrupt the commentary. That's what I wanted to give you. That's what I was aiming for. And that's mostly what I was able to provide streaming Hearthstone or Faeria, because those games are really easy on my hands. But now that my passions have changed, I want to come back to strategy games like Banished, strategy games like hell even StarCraft, or the game of dwarves that I played recently, or No Moria. I want to come back to games like that, and then shooters, fun shooters like Robocraft or Loadout or Titanfall. That's what I'm passionate about. And that's what I cannot play for multiple hours regularly, like I wanted to give you, the streaming experience I wanted to give you. I can't do it. Yesterday, even though I wasn't even playing anything, I was just traveling in a train, my hands were hurting just because I played the game of dwarves the day before. It's getting really bad. So I'm coming to a choice. Can sacrifice my health to try to give you the live streaming experience that I want to give you, but long term it's just gonna crash on itself as I completely hurt my hands. I could also stream Hearthstone or Faeria for 6 hours a day, but that would run contrary to the announcement I made for the New Year's, which is I am following my passion live streaming. If I'm not following my passion, if I'm not streaming a game I am passionate about, that's contrary to that decision I made. And it's also contrary to the entire idea of why I am live streaming. This is supposed to be a work that is also my passion. So I cannot just start pretending that I care about card games. I don't anymore. My interests have shifted. My interests have shifted to games I cannot really stream for that long. So Joyful Rogue Stream is going to be undergoing some changes. And here are the changes that I feel are necessary, given my health of my hands and given the games I am passionate about. So first of all, I cannot do it 6 days a week, because there won't be 6 days a week that I will be passionate about the game I can stream. Most of those days I will be passionate about a game I cannot stream, like Loadout. I really want to play some Loadout, but I can't. So what am I supposed to do? Pretend I care about Hearthstone because that's what I can play? Pretend I care about Feyre because that's what I can play? I care about those games to some degree, to sometimes play an hour or two, but it's not gonna be 6 hours a day, it's not gonna be 6 days a week. Not anymore. I can't do it. I simply cannot do it. And for the past couple of days, I've been reaching that realization that I actually cannot do it. So here it is. I can't do it 6 days a week. I will be online when I can, when I'm passionate about something and it's worth playing. I cannot tell you how often that will be. Obviously, I will now play Banished because I am passionate as fuck. But future will show how often I'll be online. Also, probably not 7 hours a day. Probably between 2 and 5 hours a day. Probably longer breaks as well. I'm not willing to make my hands hurt for the benefit of the live stream. It's just not worth it. Everything will crash and burn if I do that. So probably gonna be between 2 to 5 hours. If you catch me online, great. If you don't, there are VODs. That's the best I can give you. It's the best I can give you. And then thirdly, I will be helping myself with voice commands and head tracking, even though it will interrupt the commentary, even though it's not the best possible experience I can give you. It's the best for my hands right now. If I cannot play a game with clicking, like Banished right now, if I cannot do it while clicking, and I really want to play the game, I will play it with voice commands. I have some voice commands for Banished. I will maybe use the head tracking software as well to track the movement of my hands, to move the mouse according to that. So those are the changes, and then I will most likely not be able to write back to your messages some of the time. If you message me on Steam, if you message me on the chat during a break, if you PM me, there is a decent chance I will actually not write back, and I just want to know you straight up, I do care, but my hands hurt. So writing is sometimes just not a good idea for me. So those are the changes. Not 6 days a week, who knows how many. Not 7 hours a day, probably between 2 and 5. Helping myself out with voice commands and head tracking. And I'm sorry that I couldn't provide the streaming experience that most streamers provide. I couldn't experience the streaming experience I wanted to give you. And since I cannot provide you the streaming experience I wanted to give you, I will totally understand if you do not support me towards my monthly goal. If my monthly goal fails because of my health, I'm at peace with that. I will just look around for a career that works with my state of my health. I don't know. I will find something. But I totally understand if you don't support me towards my monthly financial goal, if I'm not doing as good of a job as I was hoping to, as I was doing before. It's totally understandable, so it's probably going down. But I'll be online as often as I can stream a game I'm passionate about. So that's the announcement. If there are no questions. Some people will probably ask, how long will it take, your recovery? And the honest answer is, I don't know. And the doctors do not know. Nobody knows. But I will tell you this, it took me a year to even be able to use my hands for anything. It took me 1.5 years to even be able to click. But if I click too much, it'll hurt. Now, I could fool myself saying that it's probably just gonna be another couple of months, but let's be honest, it's more of a matter of years than months at this point, from what I can see. If 1.5 years gave me this when I still cannot live stream, I could play some games like 1 hour a day, but it's not really live streaming. So I don't know how long it's gonna take. This achievement is